Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Porter. I'm one of the partner account managers at Prophix, and my lovely partner and loyal partner, Turnkey, is having me here today to present to you guys our solution. So Prophix is a CPM solution, which stands for Corporate Performance Management. You can also hear it as Enterprise Performance Management, Business Performance Management. I think just a bunch of software people sit in a room and try to think of how they can confuse everybody, and that's how this industry started. So with no further ado, our partnership with Turnkey has been around for a pretty good amount of time. They actually have quite a number of Prophix customers. Potentially some of you guys might be here today. I haven't seen everybody yet, but yeah, Turnkey is an excellent partner of ours, and they have dedicated Prophix resources, which we always love to see, which means they're staying on top of what they know, and ultimately Turnkey leverages Prophix to deliver an end-to-end budgeting, reporting, forecasting, consolidations, dashboarding solution. Prophix is a single solution in the sense that we do not modularize all of our applications and our functionality. So the nice thing is about our product is that Turnkey can truly help you maximize the solution with really no barriers to using other functionality. And so we really believe in adding more value to our customer base by adding more functionality to our product, and by adding more functionality to our product, giving your company a more greater ROI on your investment in the solution. Prophix partnered with Turnkey, obviously, to provide local support. And so they are across the Midwest and provide local implementation support. So you work with people like Laura Kane, who ultimately implement the product for customers in this kind of general geographic region. So my agenda is I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about Prophix as a company. We really believe in partnering with our customers, and so helping you guys understand more about our business, the way we develop our software. We think that's important to our customers because you're ultimately not just buying a solution, you're buying into a company in a way that they actually develop their application, so I'll talk about that. But I'll also kind of talk a little bit more generally about sort of what's happening nowadays with sort of the modernization of finance or modernization of businesses, where companies are moving away from having data in these individual repositories across their business and kind of almost siloing themselves. And so I'll kind of talk about what that means for companies today, and that there is technology out there that was solely built for the purpose of doing unification of data and budgeting, reporting, and forecasting. So Prophix was started in the late 80s by a group of finance executives. So we kind of have a soft spot for the finance people in the room. So our product really, it takes on an initial form, which is typically financial reporting and budgeting for the Office of Finance. So that's kind of where we initially start. But our application has the ability to truly be used across the entire business, dealing with any kind of data that you might have in your company. And so over time, what Prophix takes on is truly a single source and a single version of the truth for your entire organization, whether it's looking at financial data, sales data, operational data, inventory, payables, whatever it might be. Truly, Prophix can consume and automate all of that reporting and all of those planning elements. Our company has a little over 3,000 customers. We typically, in the last couple of years, have added about 200 customers per year, so we're growing at quite a rapid rate even after 28 years. But the big things that we kind of really take to heart is that we are continually recognized in our industry, not just as a fast-growing company, but also as a company that really, truly wins the hearts of the people who use our application. And so the awards that we continually, get nominated for are these Business Finance and British Accountancy Awards. These are truly awards that are solely focused on the application itself. You see in software a lot of times nowadays people talking about how fast companies are growing. Well, companies can grow fast, there's no question about that, but if they're developing an application that truly meets the needs, exceeds the needs, and actually helps businesses run more efficiently, I think that's really, truly what matters. And so we, year after year, get recognized by that business community as an application that is truly helping automate and solve business problems within our customer base. So it's time for a change, modernizing finance, modernizing businesses today. Common challenges for a lot of companies nowadays is that they're using applications that don't go beyond their general ledger. So I'm sure many of you have probably thought I could probably connect FRX into some other data source, which, yeah, you can do that, but a lot of companies are using tools that ultimately just don't go beyond a certain level of data because that application was built just for that data set. And so a lot of companies struggle with that because then what they tell us is, well, I have, I use MR or FRX for my financial reporting. Everything else is in Excel, or my sales reporting's in my sales system, and my operations reporting's in this system. And well, like, what do you got to do if somebody says, I want to see all these different KPIs in a single report? Well, there's a lot of manual effort oftentimes involved in trying to get that report put together. And so ultimately, that's kind of something we hear time and time again. Coupled with that, a lot of companies tell us that, well, I use one tool for my reporting and I use one tool for my budgeting. There's this world that people live in where the data that they want to use for budgeting and for forecasting is just not accessible in a very easy way. They have to take actuals, dump it into a spreadsheet, and then create formulas and hope people don't erase them and stuff like that. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, their ability to truly use the data within their company as a means of forecasting their business is just far too manual, far too cumbersome when there's technology out there that was built to solely do just that. And so these are things that we hear time and time and time again, that they have countless spreadsheets and they can't see their budgets until the very end of the budget when everything gets consolidated. And so their ability to know where their business is going as it's getting planned is basically nil. Because unless somebody's going to consolidate everybody's templates and spreadsheets every single week as the budget's coming together, you're only going to know what the total budget is at the very end. And so those are things that we hear time and time again from our customer base, and that's a reason why they come to Prophix. And so that's kind of commonly where the data sits. They have data in 3 different areas, 4 different areas, but ultimately with Prophix we can take all that, put it into a single solution, make using your data really easy with just point-and-click functions that allow you to do planning, 6 months, or to take, OpEx expenses and allocate them to departments based on the number of people in those departments. Prophix takes an approach where we sit down with our customer base 4 times a year, and we basically say to them, how do you do your budgeting? How do you do your forecasting? How do you do your reporting? And ultimately try to take the way that they do things and make it native to our application, such that anybody in our customer base can use, XYZ method for their purpose of forecasting or whatever it might be. And so with our product, we truly believe in almost productizing the way our customers do things, such that we make them simpler. We don't want customers trying to, have to work around, if you will, the way that they want to do things. And so that's kind of how we, again, develop our application, and we believe strongly in, really telling the market this is how we develop our application, that we develop it with you in mind. We want to take the way you do things and make it native to the product, so you're not building something custom. Our solution, as I said, kind of takes on the form of a financial reporting tool initially. If you're a GP customer or any Dynamics product for that matter, that's the most worked with family of products that Prophix works with. But we do have the ability to integrate to over 200 different data sources. So if you're SQL-based, if you're non-SQL-based, if you're cloud-based, whatever it might be, that is one of our biggest strong suits. And so initially, customers will use our product for financial reporting in a matter of a couple days. You'll have all of your reports, whether you're using it in FRX or MR, in a matter of a couple days. That stuff is up and running. And so that's kind of clockwork for the solution because it's built out and it's a pre-built integration. So most customers will start off using the product as a financial reporting tool. but quickly move to other areas. And so these are just a couple of the various areas, sort of high-level functions that customers would use the product for. But over time, as they do their budgeting at a general ledger level, they may decide, well, we want to get more granular. We don't want to plan sales at an account level. We want to plan sales at a product level, at a customer level, by sales rep, things like that. And so over time, what customers can start doing is getting more granular and use other data, sub-ledger data from other sources, and then have the solution consolidate that data in real time back to your financial statements, such that you can truly do things like forecasting, things like what-if analysis within the product. And so what Turnkey does an excellent job of, and what we really support our partners to do, is to develop a path and develop a vision as to what the product can do over time. And so you can implement the product in phases. You can implement the product as you need to use different functionality. But more importantly, when your company decides one day that, we need a dashboard or we need a scorecard, simply being able to say, great, we have a solution for that. I don't have to call anybody. I don't have to buy additional modules. I don't have to do anything. You simply can just respond to that requirement as soon as that requirement came to you. And so that's something we believe in. That's why we don't make our product sold module by module. We want you to be able to say, Prophix was there for us when we had to produce X, Y, Z. And so a lot of customers will start in this area of budgeting and reporting and move to other areas as their company sees fit, as their company grows. So many of my customers have said, well, we're just one company today. 2 years down the road, they acquired another company. That company they needed to bring into the solution. They needed to consolidate it. It was on a different accounting system. All of that was there. And so being able to just respond to that and really being able to keep your business moving forward and get the analytics out the door that the business leaders need is really important. So just to kind of give you an idea, as I said, we are one product, complete, unified, secure, developed essentially over 28 years of development, completely all here in North America. So we do have quite a breadth of experience in that regard. We believe in a no-nonsense licensing model, which I've kind of already talked about, and we believe in a collaborative implementation methodology. And so we build something during the day, we schedule a meeting at the end of the day, and we teach you it, and we show you it, and we help you understand it. So when ultimately, as you become more comfortable with the solution, you can do everything that your consultant ever did for you as well. And so that's the nice thing about the product, is that it's a type of product that we teach you where to go, what to click, not where to go, what to write in these special syntaxes and formulas and things like that. And so we believe in that type of an approach to and ultimately enable our customers to become independent. It is in the Microsoft architecture, so it's a product that is built on the same type of architecture that your existing ERPs and by and large most of your databases are on. So that's why it's one of those solutions that integration is very simple, because it's built on the same architecture that we're connecting to. And lastly, kind of the best total cost of ownership and ROI in the market, because we are truly the only solution that provides all of our functionality to our customer base. And so that's something that we really do believe in. So without further ado, I'm going to go through a quick demo here. And so I'm going to start off kind of with dashboards and scorecards, moving kind of naturally into some analysis as to what you can do from those dashboards and what you can do from your reports. So ultimately enabling the people who are using the data and using the reports to become independent by using Prophix. We don't want them calling finance or operations or IT every time that they need to see invoice level transactions or to look at a report differently, to pivot, if you will. We want to enable the people who use the solution, and so we'll talk about that today. And then, of course, lastly, we'll talk about budgeting, forecasting, and so how you can do that also within Prophix. So I think as many of you guys have known, if anybody's ever seen Prophix before, I don't want to confuse you. So with Prophix, we have two different areas that you can access the product from. So many of you, if you've seen Prophix many years ago, you probably would have seen our Smart Client environment. This is an environment that, if you want, you can use this, but this is an environment meant for people who wanted to access Prophix on their network, on their desktop. Prophix has since moved to building in a full HTML5 browser-based environment, which is what I'm going to demo today. But the point is that you can access Prophix anywhere on the go, no matter what you're doing, on any device. And so that's really kind of where that browser technology comes into play. So I'm going to demo that today, but just to not confuse people who've maybe seen it before, we have a full browser environment. And that can be deployed on-premise. It can be deployed in a cloud environment. Obviously, that's the purpose of us having browsers. So I'm going to show that to you guys today because, quite frankly, it's exciting. All right, so this is the first thing you can see when you log into Prophix as an end user. This is not just a dashboard for everybody. The beauty of this is you can create dashboards and then assign them out to your users such that each individual person logs into Prophix, gets their own tailored home screen with all of their own tailored KPIs and charts and everything on them. So I'll show you actually how this was built in a second because it's quite easy. But when I log into the solution, dashboards are great, but they're only as good as the data you can get out of them. And so if you just present something to somebody like this, and it's a visual depiction of a graph, all right, that's pretty good. I can see that outside services in Q4 were pretty substantial. So that's a good thing to take away from it. But all of our graphs and dashboards are interactive. So when I open up this dashboard here and I see Q1 and I wanted to see, well, Q1 G&A, what was that breakdown by month? All I simply would have to do is right click on that component of it, hit the down arrow, and it will now drill into G&A by month for Q1. So now it's giving me all the individual G&A accounts that total up to total G&A, and it's giving me that level of analysis. So that's kind of the first step I can go into in the sense that, I don't want to just see that initial dashboard. I can actually truly interact with it. The other thing I can do with the dashboard is also launch into the underlying data behind it. So everything behind this dashboard, there's actual numbers in there feeding directly in from the ERP system. So now I can see all of those accounts broken out by month, and I can further interact with the data from here. And so with here, I can look at all the individual accounts. I can also go back up a level. So I could go back up to all the payroll, G&A, outside services where we were before. I could also go back up a level on the months to the quarters. And now, we've actually truly interacted with the data. And so these types of things, these types of interactions, historically would come back on finance, historically would come back on IT or somebody that they would have to produce these different types of, let's call them pivots. And so we believe in enabling end users through a simple click and mouse click, click and drag type of environment such that we're ultimately removing that onus on a key group of individuals within the company to have to be those people who do all the reporting, to do all the ad hoc analysis and things like that. So this is just a typical type of thing that you would see. Now, a lot of people would also say, well, what did I do actual versus plan? So it in Prophix, and well, we have budget numbers in there. Well, what was my Q1 actual versus plan? On the left side of the page, you'll always have all these different pages or drop-downs or filters, if you will. These are also interactive in the sense that all of these fields, you can take them and you can click and drag. So if I wanted to see Q1 actuals, there's my Q1 actuals. Well, what if I wanted to see actuals, plan, and variance? All I would do is just right-click on actuals, because that's a field. Go to choose members. And then here's all of our different planning and forecasting versions. Again, with Prophix, this is all unified within each model. You don't have to have individual budgeting models and reporting models. So essentially, once we set up your financial reporting model, your P&L and your balance sheet and your cash flow budgeting is automatically there too, which is kind of nice. So if I wanted to look at plan and variance, all I have to do is just simply add them over, click OK, and there we go. We have actual plan variance. Now you'll notice that variance, again, is something I chose. It wasn't something that I had to write in. I didn't have to actually write in a formula. We believe in trying to centralize everything from the way the accounts roll up to the way the variances are calculated to the way you calculate KPIs. All of that is centralized within something called a model manager or an account manager, where you are centralizing the way things are done. And so that's what allows me to look at an account listing and then say, well, I want to go down a level. I want to go down another level. And so I can keep doing this because Prophix is built on a hierarchy. It's built on a centralized hierarchy, as opposed to what you might be experiencing today is it's built on a tree, or it's built on something that's report specific. By centralizing all of this, you breed consistency, you breed validity, and ultimately you allow the users to interact with it in a very controlled and a very safe environment, as opposed to, this was report specific and somebody actually, didn't build it right. So we believe in that type of centralization of control, which ultimately allows you, if you're the finance professional, to produce a report, to produce a dashboard, and then, rest assured that somebody interacts with it, they get down to this level, that it's 100% correct. So it allows us to interact with the data, and again, just to note, this is all driven by my mouse. And so when you're doing your reports, you're writing your reports, writing is a bad word because you're not really writing anything. You're literally just clicking and dragging, using the different functions that Prophix has to offer. And so that's what ultimately allows us to not just train, your finance person who knows Excel well, or your IT person. It allows us to train really anybody in your company, because we're breaking down those barriers of, having to know specifics of, write this, write that. This really allows us to make this a true corporate performance management solution, which can be deployed across the entire company. So this is just some level of analysis you can do in the ad hoc tool, the ad hoc report writer, and you can ultimately allow your users to use this as a tool to become much more independent. Now, the other question a lot of people will get is, well, I'd like to see all of the line items or all the transactions for a given account. And so all I have to do here, at anywhere in Prophix, no matter where you are, if you're at a monthly level, a quarterly level, if you're at the top of your P&L, you're at the bottom of your P&L, you always have the ability to right-click and to do something called drill across. And so drill across allows you to produce a real-time insight into all the transactions that are coming directly from that source database. So in this case, it would be your ERP, coming directly from that source database, producing all of the transactions for the user. And so again, this is something that I, as a former accountant, I got that question a lot. And so, I would always be getting, well, what are the transactions? What were the invoices? Can you give me all the invoices that I approved for that? Eliminating that question, eliminating that time is huge, because you think about the number of times that happens in a given year, you can really start to add up, all that time that you spend simply doing things that people could do much more independently themselves. So this is a real-time transactional view. If someone made a transaction 2 seconds ago, it's here. You can also, of course, like I said, anywhere, quite literally anywhere in Prophix, you can also drill across from your dashboards as well. So I could look at that dashboard and drill right into the transactions from the dashboard as well. I'll pause there. Does anybody have any questions thus far? Yep.
Where is the plan built in? Is that built into the other software, or is it built into your?
So the question for those on the line was, where is the plan built in? I'm actually going to get to that next. So the plan, as you saw in the ad hoc, it allowed me to pull in actual plan and variance all within that same model, that financial model, if you will. And so the planning elements are built into the same exact model, and that's kind of where I'm going to go next. And so with Prophix, when you want to start building your plan, all you simply do is you take that same financial reporting model. Instead of choosing actuals from the scenarios or the list, you would choose plan, and then that allows you to start to input your budget. And so at the core of budgeting in Prophix, a lot of companies are getting away from the whole centralized budgeting where finance does everything. They're trying to drive accountability in their business, so therefore they want business heads, they want managers filling out budgets, going through proper approvals, and ultimately having people really, quote unquote, sign up for their budget. And so in order to do that, you need something to ultimately allow your company to track the budget as it comes together, to understand who's completed their task, who's the approver of that task, what are we waiting on in that type of thing. And so with Prophix, we have a workflow tool, very similar to other workflow tools that you probably used, where you would assign a task, that person would complete it, then it would go to an approver. So in the world of Prophix, in the world of budgeting, if you will, you can apply that same methodology to say, this is the person who inputs the budget into the task, this is the person who approves the task. And so on everybody's dashboard, we always put that tasks tab there, or that tasks component. And so on here, I can always see all the tasks that are available for me to complete. And so I always have them. They're always front and center. The budget administrator, though, they can control everything from the version of the budget, from the template of the budget the person's supposed to be filling out. All of that gets controlled centrally within the workflow. And so that's really important, because a lot of people say, well, we deal with so many spreadsheets in our budgeting process, I can't remember which one's the latest one. I don't remember what's the one that I should be using. And so the workflow is an excellent tool for that, because it allows you to control, who's the approver, who's the owner, what task or what template are they using, what budget version should they be on, all of that, again, the theme of centralization of control, such that as an end user, all I should care about is, do I have a task? I don't care about what template's in that task. That's the latest one. That's what finance wants me using. So when I click on that task, it will open up the template. And one of the nice things here is that all of the templates can use the exact same formatting pane of Excel. So for your end users who are maybe used to using templates that have a certain look and feel, you can provide them with that same exact look and feel, making them feel much more comfortable. So something that we thought about, our customers said, well, if we're going to make a change, if we're going to have people use something different, we want them to feel familiar. So just so you know, all of your reports can look the same, which is great. So when I open up this template, or let's call it even a report, everything in here is specific to me as an end user. So me as an end user, I'm VP of marketing. And so when I open up this template, I only see the marketing departments. But as someone who would have created this report or template, that does not mean I have to customize, let's call it in the world of Excel, a tab for that person, where the data in that report or template is specific to that individual. Everybody who opens up Prophix has their own security profile. It's based on all the fields in each model, and then with all of the different IDs, if it's account ID or department ID, it's all specific to that. And so one of the huge ROIs and time savers for Prophix users is just that they do not have to create version after version, tab after tab of reports and templates just because that's what this person should see. Prophix will do all of that for you, and ultimately that's something you can really measure year over year in terms of not having to do that. So if you kind of think about how much do I do that now, if you can eliminate that 95% of that, that's a huge time saver, that's a huge ROI. So if you go to our website, you look at some of the case studies, that's something customers call out time and time again. So when I open this up, I'm going to go down to content marketing here. Within content marketing, I can begin budgeting either by month, I could budget by week, by day, by quarter, by year, 6 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever it might be. You decide what level of detail you want people budgeting at. So when I'm budgeting, my P&L or my OPEX, obviously, I can budget out by month. It's no problem. I can also budget at a higher level by a year. And so as you can see in here, we have a forecast column called 9+3. Again, that forecast column is just something in the scenarios manager where just where that actuals are, just where those plans are, you set up another scenario for your budget, for your forecast, and then simply all you have to do, because the actuals are in Prophix, is just create a version called forecast, dictate the start of the forecast, and then all of the actuals get populated. You never will have to, load in data into a forecast. Because that data is already in Prophix, it makes building a forecast something you can do in a matter of seconds. So we have a forecast here. It's telling us where we're going to end up through the remainder of the year. So I'm going to try to use that as a means of, budgeting out the coming 12 months. So again, kind of going back to that whole theme of using the data your company has to produce a more valid, to produce a better budget. So if we're going to get $74,000 in this account through the remainder of the year, perhaps then I'll plan out $75,000. When I plan out $75,000, because I'm planning at a higher level of the time period than the individual months, I'm planning at an annual level, Prophix wants you to then push that data down to the months. So with Prophix, again, 4 native spreading options or allocation options immediately begin to present themselves. These are things you do not have to set up. Again, these are things that our customers said, we want this. This is how we allocate costs. So these are all functions that customers have had us bring into the product. So the first one is spread evenly, which just divides it by the number of periods I'm planning for. In this case, it's 12, but it could be 24 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months. I could also spread based on existing data. So this would be kind of the equivalent of saying I want to take a weighted average of all the data that's already there, my baseline budget, and then allocate that $75,000 based on that weighted average. I could also spread based on a preset value. In this case, it could be the number of weeks in each month. And then the final one is, and this is honestly probably the most compelling, this is where I can take other data that I've put into Prophix as my means of allocating that plan or allocating that data out to the individual months. So in this case, I have a full plethora of financial accounts, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, as well as a bunch of statistical accounts, including different drivers like headcount, square footage, as well as KPIs and things of that nature. And so again, it's using that data within your company for the purpose of ultimately producing a much more valid budget. And so I have a whole bunch of different things at my disposal here that I can use to then almost allocate the cost out. I'm not going to choose any of these, but rather I'm going to choose something different. I'm going to choose the ability to then take prior year actuals and spread based on that, and to say, well, I don't necessarily know how it's going to hit, but I'd like to use how last year's numbers came in. Again, that data doesn't even have to be in the template. In the world of Excel, you'd have to have it there. You'd have to load it in order to use it. So long as it's in Prophix, you have the ability to use it. And so if I choose versions, this is, again, where all of the different types of data types reside, so actuals, forecast, plan. I could choose actuals and then choose the time period 2016 to say, well, I'd like to spread based on how last year's actuals, starting in January forward, began to come in for the year. So if I click OK, it's going to allocate that $75,000 down to the individual months based on last year's actuals. There it is. It's quite clear that May was a big, so if history repeats itself, that should be a pretty good allocation of cost. And then I can put in here a comment for the person who would approve this task. So I could say spread based on 2016 actuals. I'm not a very good one-handed typer. And of course, also, you can put attachments onto those comments as well. So not just a physical piece of words, but you could also add an attachment there as well to the comment. So if I add that, it adds it to the data, and it doesn't specifically just add it to that cell. It will literally attach itself to that data point such that at anywhere in the system, whether I got to this $75,000 data point from the dashboard down to the ad hoc, it's going to be there. So no longer will you ever have to then search down comments when you want to build your variance reports for actual versus plan. Don't even have to bother with that. So the data is always going to be there wherever you go in the system. The other type of planning I'm going to briefly walk you through, there's 2 more types. And so the first one is where you want to have users actually plan out something called like a transactional budget or a line item budget. In other words, you have a given account and you say to people, I need written justification, not just a piece of commentary, but written line item justification for the dollars that are there. And so within Prophix, I can right-click on the cell. In this case, I'm planning airfare, and users can actually put in almost like a transactional budget, or in this case, like a trip-by-trip budget for each thing that's going to come in. And so again, what this allows you to do is actually be able to see, when you do your variance analysis, a transactional variance analysis between line item transactions in the budget and line item transactions in the actuals. And so you can require your users and actually tell the system that this account, specifically when someone accesses it, requires line item budget. So you can put in month by month, you put in your written justification, and then you hit save, and it totals up all the individual things by month. So again, that's just one other way of doing things. The final way, and this is kind of something I talked about earlier, is a lot of companies will start off doing this style of budgeting where we're dealing with the general ledger, you're just dealing with account level type stuff. But with Prophix, we have a module called Detailed Planning Manager. Detailed Planning Manager allows you to plan in a much more granular fashion using things like your subledger, using subtables and things like that in your ERP or other systems. It allows you to plan that data and have real-time data push back to your financial statements, allowing you to do true what-if scenario-based analysis with more granular data. Because for a lot of companies, this is not how they plan everything across the board. They plan it in a much more granular fashion. And again, this is something that a lot of companies who do this type of planning have to wait until the end of their planning cycle to consolidate all that data to see the way it's coming together. And so the way I'm going to show you today is, I can't plan out this data up here because it's locked. It's for personnel. But I can go back to my dashboard, and I can open up the personnel planning template. So this opens up a detailed planning schedule. It's a little different than a template in the sense that it's more of a schedule with lots of different columns and attributes, but ultimately this is fully integrated to your payroll system, no matter what payroll system you might use. And so it brings out of the system everything from the employee IDs to their names to all of the necessary attributes you need in order to calculate things like their salary, in order to calculate things like taxes and benefits. And so everything from what's their name, what's their ID, what benefit plan do they have, what salary do they make, what state do they live in. All of these things matter for calculating all those different payroll costs. And so this is where I'm planning all of the payroll cost components of my OPEX or my P&L plan at the general ledger level. So now I'm planning employee by employee. It's a completely different data set. It's a completely different data model, but it's connected. And so I can go down to this level. I can add in new employees, I can change things. You can control all the individual attributes as well, so not everybody would have to see salaries, not everybody would have to see what their marital status is, things like that. You can literally user by user control each of the individual fields, so we recognize that security is very important, so it's very granular in that fashion. So I can make this plan. I'm not going to do many changes just for the time being, but I can make this plan out employee by employee. And then what I can do is hit Update in the Actions tab. Update then sends this data in real time back to my financial ledger, such that when I go back to my template here, and I hit Refresh, it then has automatically loaded all that data back up to the general ledger level in real time. So that whole process that normally people have to wait until the end of the budget cycle to do happens instantaneously as the budget's coming together. And so not only is that a huge time saver for the people who have to do it, it's also adding more value to the people who are responsible for the cost of these things, because now what I could do is say, okay, well, January is a little low. Maybe we can afford to bump up one of our new hires and say that they start in January instead of later in the year. So I could then go back to this for this open position, tell the system that I want this person to start in January, click OK, and then go back, hit the update button, and it will again push that data back to the ledger and ultimately give me that true what-if type of analysis. And so in most people's opinion, what-if analysis is really only as valuable as the answer to that what-if. So now we've gone from 27,000 in salaries up to 30 in January, and so we see that what-if analysis happen in real time. And so that detailed planning manager can be used for any type of data sets that you might have across your company. We give payroll as kind of our initial example because it's oftentimes how people plan. They plan at an employee's level, or at least like a title or a resource type level. But all that data then instantly pushes back. So your whole P&L, you're not handcuffed if you decide to plan things at more of a detailed level. And so that detailed planning manager really assists very well with that, in the sense that you can see that budget come together. And so once I'm done and I've completed this, I can hit submit. And what's going to happen now is it's going to send that template through to the next person in the task process, which in this case it would be the approver. I think for the purpose of the demo, I'm the approver of my own budget, which is not recommended. And it'll automatically kick out that email, and it will send to the next person saying, hey, you have a task available. It's waiting for you to complete, and ultimately goes through the next part of the process. So again, the workflow is doing that whole work that you normally maybe would have to do, or either rely on your colleagues to do, in the sense of sending that template on to the next person. The workflow is doing it all for you right from the start. Just for the sake of time, the very last thing kind of we wanted to go through was, obviously, as I said, within Prophix, one of the first things that Prophix takes on in terms of a form within your company is financial reporting. So, in basically 3 or 4 days, you'll have your whole, existing financial reporting completed and re-imaged in Prophix. But just as an example, I open up a P&L. It looks the way you want it to look. But what if you also send out packages of reports to people at the end of the month? What if it's not just, producing an income statement and a balance sheet and a cash flow every month? What if, you want to send the entire package of people, 3, 4 reports out to one person in, PDF, PowerPoint, Word, whatever it might be? Well, within Prophix, we have a tool called Report Binders, and allows you to take all those reports that your team has built and the consulting team has built with you. It allows you to take those reports and then put them into a binder, send them to a distribution list of users, and again, because every user has their own security profile, everybody receives a different cut of it. So I know one of the big things that people spend time on every single month is producing these packets or these binders, and ultimately those are very time-consuming because you have to individualize each one of them. Well, again, with the technology that Prophix offers, it allows you to eliminate all that time and rely on the system to do all of that security tailoring for you. So you can send those report binders out to users into their inbox in any number of formats: PDF, PowerPoint, Word. You can also post them to an intranet if you have any kind of an intranet like a SharePoint or something like that. But again, you open them up, and you can put in a couple different things in here. I'm just going to try to make. You can put in a couple different things in here for each user. You can obviously have a title page, but you could also put in here narratives. So if your controller, your CFO wants to put in some narratives for each, like VP or head of a business unit, they can write those different narratives in and assign them to the different users. But again, as you kind of get into each report, this is where the system starts to take on that security that each user should have. And so this is really where that huge time saver comes into play. And so even though you're providing this type of reporting to somebody in a static fashion, it's in PDF, it's not interactive, inherently when they know that they can interact with it, they are going to go into the system. And so for a lot of our companies and a lot of our clients, using Prophix is a cultural change because it's now putting the power in the end user's hands, making them more accountable, it's making them more independent. And so that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what we want companies to do, and also at the end of the day, make them much more analytical, make them much more data-driven, provide a single environment, a single interface, a single user experience for everybody in the company to do all of their budgeting and all of their reporting in a single system.